The constellations are extremely conceptual because they ask you to go to a place in time. I decided to choose moments in history that I felt were important. And I was able to figure out exactly where the stars would be on certain days from certain positions on Earth looking certain directions. This painting is Bern, Switzerland, 1905, looking north, and it happens to be when Einstein's theories of relativity were published. It's a history of that moment. Yeah, that's good. This is the day that the law was written of the abolition of slavery. And it's looking south from Washington, D.C. And I'm also working on one when all the parts arrive for the Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor. It's all about the brush mark and how it catches the light or lets it go. Some of the stars are painted just horizontally, and then some of them are painted at a diagonal, so that as you walk past it, some will be brighter than others. So they kind of twinkle. I use a number of blacks. Lately I've been just using 4 different blacks. Each one reflects the light differently. Captures the light or lets it go differently. If you were to put a sample of each paint down on a piece of paper, they'd look slightly different from one another, but if you looked at the painting without light on it, the whole thing would just be black.
She's extraordinarily talented as a painter. She moves the paint around in different ways. Sometimes it's very smooth. You feel the textures of the brush. And she can make it like wood, and she can make it like flesh, and she can make it seem like the petals of a flower. So there's all this variation that she gives to it, and she can make it so light. You have these tremendously physical objects in black that are then presented to you in such a way that you want to put your hands on them. So her painting has always been that way. Her clouds were sculptural too, and they're volumetric. You feel it's part of you, and you want to become part of it.
An uncle of mine, Leroy Anderson, was a Lutheran minister, a Danish Lutheran minister in Wisconsin, and he was a Dane. And when I was a little girl, about 5 years old, he told me a story about King Christian, how when the Nazis came in, King Christian came riding out on his horse wearing the Star of David, and that he was, an important person. And I just remembered that. In 1988, I painted a painting of King Christian to serve as an archetype to stand up against anti-Semitism. And that began this series of moral courage.
It's a great story, an act of heroism. It's an act of bravery, solidarity, and hope for mankind. I would like to think that I would be able to do something similar were I in a similar position. It's just tremendously admirable. I didn't really know where I was going to put Karen's picture when I bought it, but it fits perfectly at the end of this hall, and it works also very beautifully with the skylight, which lights it naturally so that you can see the different shades of the black and the modeling of the brushstroke. When people first come in, they will do a bit of a double take. It's hard to ignore this big black mass on the left as you're coming in. A lot of people have said, gee, that's their favorite painting. And there's a lot of art here. It does move a lot of people, possibly because they haven't ever seen anything like it. It's a wonderful picture. Wonderful picture.
The community that I grew up in was in Racine, Wisconsin, and it was a Scandinavian one, mostly Danish. And there was a real sense of righteousness about people.
She has this belief in goodwill. It's very unusual, not just at this time, but living in New York, that someone who's been in the city for that long would actually feel that way, but there's this sort of fundamental faith that she has in the goodwill of people. Ultimately, I really do think that the paintings drive towards ideas like collective community sharing. And I think she manages to do it in a way in the end that is not sentimental, which is quite a trick.
Water seemed like such a natural fit with the black paint because you see the light changing on the surface. I've made a brush mark that follows a wave, a gentle wave or a more voluminous wave, and that's how you see it. You see the water reflecting, and it's just because of the light reflecting on the brush marks. And so it becomes a very exciting process to paint because each brush mark, and as I feel it, I'm really feeling the feeling of the wave. The black is the depth. It's the depth of the water. When you move in front of the water paintings, you see the light changing on the surface. Physically, the way we see water is because of the light reflecting on the surface. It's the same thing.